Hello, people, and welcome to BTG. This is your host, Mr. Shaker. You know some such songs as Aftercall and You Shoulda Took the. And as I was stating in my last video, I wanted to speak on the Electoral College, and also physics. However, I guess since the Electoral College is kind of a larger subject, I'll start with the physics topic first. Now, one thing that I did admire about physics was that it was actually just one time in class where we had this one experiment where our teacher asked us, we were supposed to pretty much use this one calculation where we're supposed to take a marble and let it go on a circular ramp, and based upon the equations that were provided, we were supposed to predict where the marble would land, and based on our calculations, we would have to put the cup in that location. And if the cup landed, if the marble landed in the cup, then we didn't have to write a science report or a lab report. It is. And what was funny was I remember this one guy who always would, well, I guess for lack of better words, troll the teacher. And this was before trolling was even popular, or before it was even really called trolling. And it's funny because based on where he would do certain things in class where he would where he was actually pretending to text one time, and he wrote on his, because he would be texting in class, and the teacher would just say, "Hey, stop texting." And what he wound up doing was taking a piece of paper and actually writing on it. It's not a cell phone, and started to pretend to type. And he was actually typing more aggressively, or trying to text more aggressively, but the teacher wasn't paying him any mind. And it's funny because the day that he didn't have a cell phone, or he wasn't texting, the teacher actually wasn't paying him no mind, so it was like his plan failed. He was in on it. And it's funny because I'm thinking about how I was in mathematics and how I was, exceptional and whatnot. That day I had to wind up taking a back seat because I was trying to round the numbers, and they were saying, "Nope, we're not going to round. We're going to use the exact number." And even though you couldn't use the true exact number, what they did was any number they found on a calculator, they would just write it down. So if it was 8.3 repeating, they wrote down as many threes as possible for the calculator. And so when they put in the numbers into the variables, and when we predicted where the cup was going to land, it wasn't going to be 6 inches or anything like that. It was going to be 6.76543 inches. So we tried to slide it to the exact point where it was going to land and try to center the middle of the cup to where the marble would land. And the funny thing about it was that all the people, when they were letting the marbles go, they were like, we missed. We got to write a lab report. And then our squad dropped the marble, let the marble go on the ramp, and it actually landed in the cup. And I was like, whoa. What type of sorcery is this? Because I've never seen any type of mathematics where you could actually predict the outcome. I mean, besides addition. However, with this type of math equation, I'm just thinking, wait, you can actually calculate real-world events from this type of math. I'm like, whoa, this is the exact math. I'm thinking that means if I know the formula, I could calculate anything, any outcome. All you need is the correct data and the right formula, and you straight. So when I realized that was the case, I'm just, the only thing I regret about physics was that I didn't have enough of that in school. It was because we only had one class of that in high school, and I wish that we would have learned that stuff earlier on when we were in middle school. Because if we remembered the physics equations, like the, what is it called, Sakatoa for right triangles, and also What else is it? And I guess the area formula for triangles and circles and whatnot. If we had more time for physics, because I'm thinking the type of class I was in, yeah, that would have been nice to actually have that type of knowledge for physics, or to know those equations. And I could have learned those equations because it was just repetition and memorization. So that would have been, it would have been better if we would have learned that earlier on. Like if I was in, I mean, even 10th grade at the earliest, or not the earliest, but just the latest, that would have been nice. It would definitely helped out in the long run. Because the issue with physics was that we had as many formulas as our math formulas. Like all the formulas that you learn over time, like the 3 formulas you may learn a year, so to speak. You have your little formula sheet and you memorize it over time. We imagine having that same exact formula sheet with like 10 or 12 different formulas, except you have that formula sheet in 1 year, and it's an entirely new set of formulas that you don't know. So, well, that was that story. But now, to the Electoral College. What made it interesting about the Electoral College was actually someone in my family was actually didn't understand what the Electoral College actually truly was, because they didn't realize that the Electoral College is what got Obama and actually all the presidents really elected for quite some time. I found that the Electoral College actually started in 1787, or that's when it was actually enacted, which was funny because I remember the other individual, which I didn't really believe it, or I had to check it out for myself. They were stating that this wasn't included in the Constitution. And I'm thinking, you sure? Certain? Positive? So I checked it out for myself, and I figured, well, sure enough, it wasn't exactly in the Constitution. This was in 1787, which wasn't in the original Constitution. So, or actually, I gotta check that out because I remember this Declaration of Independence was 1776. So I gotta check those dates out. However, the Electoral College, which they were surprised about, was they didn't realize that the what do you call it? One thing they didn't realize was that the what is it? Oh yeah, what they didn't understand was, because now since we had Trump that got elected, they were wondering, say, wait, the Electoral College? Wait, that means my vote don't count? And I'm thinking, it never counted. It never counted in that regard. And they're saying, oh, but Obama got elected with the popular vote and got the Electoral College. I'm thinking, that doesn't mean anything. Because at the end of the day, they didn't say, oh, the people voted for Obama, so let's elect him. It was just that's who they decided they felt was the best choice at that time, I guess. But anyways, one thing I found funny about it was just that the surprise on their face, and I guess a bit of the hypocrisy, or not hypocrisy, but just the lack of acceptance for that. But just on a side note, what I'm doing here is I'm trying to test out to see if that killing floor that I'm gonna have for my outpost, just so I have to collect, just so I can collect supplies later on. I'm just trying to test it out here because I mean I might wind up implementing it here permanently. So I mean, you know, it's a good design. But anyways, that's what I was stating. The Electoral College was what I found what I found funny about that was just that it wasn't exactly what people. It's funny because people thought, oh, this country's a democracy, or we're a true democracy. Whatever we vote for actually happens, or we vote for the leaders, and then they perform actions such as, this is how politics will work in a republic, which technically we are a republic, where I believe the correct terminology is a federal constitutional republic, which that in that regard it means that the government, the republic, or the election of one leader is supported by the government by law. In other words, the law being constitution or the main law of the government, and federal meaning the actual government themselves, which is what that terminology is supposed to be broken down to. That's pretty much what it is in simplest terms. But some people were thinking that the election was unfair because of this notion, which I found. It was what I say is pretty. I can't say it's pretty fair. However, I remember the individual I was talking about was, like I said, an older individual, and wow, looks like that didn't work. I have to switch to small arms just to see if this does indeed work. I remember last time using a smaller firearm actually made people drop things. I guess it's more of a challenge. But anyways, as I was stating, they were saying the election wasn't really fair because of that. But I was thinking, this individual was talking about, hey, I wanted it to be a true democracy. Like, if I vote for something, it should work. And I'm thinking this person was back in the they were around during the 60s. And I'm thinking, would you really wanted majority to rule at that time, the mob choice? So I'm thinking some of those rules would have probably not have seen you with the rights that you have today if that was the case. So I'm like, they should be thankful that we do have a process where you can elect someone and someone else who I guess is more qualified is able to elect them, which I still find the whole election process a little bit a bit I wouldn't say it's exactly the best process. I mean, we can improve the system, and sure, look for ways to improve the system. But however, I was describing this to the other individual where I was stating that the whole process of electing a president is the people electing people to elect someone. That's almost like if you wanted to vote for. Oh, look, it worked. Anyways, as I was stating, it's almost like as if you were to vote for your favorite doctor or medical professional, and based on who you voted for those doctors, they're going to vote for whoever you voted for is going to pick your doctor. And I think that's the issue that we have to decide. If there's two different doctors, and I'm thinking, what are their? I want to know what's their qualifications. I don't want someone to vote the doctor that's going to be in charge of my health now. We do kind of vote for the doctors by going to the doctor, visiting our doctors, and paying for the service, and that is how we support them. Which I don't know how that would work out if you actually had to elect a president that way by paying them for their service. Which we do that by our taxes. However, at that point, I know we wouldn't be able to do anything like that because, of course, there is going to be a level of corruption, especially on that large of a scale. Because who would want to risk being able to be in charge of the entire country, especially the pension that the presidents are supposed to receive, which I believe is $500,000, I believe now. Which I'm trying to understand why billionaires would really want to get that position just based on the amount of money that you would earn. I guess it is a steady income. Earning, come on, $500,000 every year does seem like a good setup, especially in the long run in case everything does falter. It does definitely provide some security. The thing I was stating was that this individual wanted the majority to rule, but I was saying that doctors, we don't vote for our doctors that way. So, we don't have our doctors that way. Something, and I wouldn't really approve of that process. So, I do believe that people should have a say in it, because if you eliminate the people altogether, then you're going to have an oligarchy where someone's going to have that mother knows best mentality and put people in office that shouldn't be there, but it's just going to be their friends. It's going to be an oligarchy and also possibly a bit of nepotism as well. Because, I mean, some people will think that their family's going to have the best ideas, or at least they're going to be easier to control, or at least they're going to approve of the policies that the elected official would approve of because, well, they're family. And you're more likely to wind up doing that if you have family. It reminds me of this one police officer where they asked this one individual question where they said, if you had a family member and they wanted to go to, and you had to arrest them, would you arrest them? And that was the question that they had to answer in order to try to become a cop. Which, I mean, I find it kind of funny where I know what you would answer, but for them it's almost like, what would you actually do in that situation? Anyways, I think that is the issue with a true democracy is, I saw it on this, what do you call it, Steven Crowder video where he stated that, where he's saying that the founding fathers, he had quotes from the founding fathers where they stated that a true democracy actually wasn't that great. And I mean, I do agree with them. However, I'm uncertain, as I was telling the one person, I'm uncertain if those quotes were actually true or if they stated them themselves, just because, you know, not everything on the internet is true. So that's why you always have to take everything like a grain of salt, just like Gandhi. So the thing is, though, I was thinking what would be better than democracy. One thing I was thinking of, when I was looking for all certain alternatives, I was thinking of a technocracy, which usually is supposed to involve those who have experience should run things, or at least within that department. Which myself, I agree with. If you're qualified for the job, you should be in charge. But the only issue is, if somebody was, let's say if you wanted someone to be in charge of the IT department, let's say for computer policies or cyber policies, you wanted someone who was in the IT field, or someone that was an IT manager. Even if they're a great IT manager, what if their policies are, let's say for example, for Operation Paperclip, where they had what do you call those? Where they had the German scientists go to the U.S. and other countries as well, or actually go to the U.S. And I know some did go to other places. However, just the ones that were going to the U.S., they took their knowledge of science with them, along with their ideologies. And some people think that just because the Nazi Party actually was defeated in that year in 1945, they forget that some of those people, like, they just lost the war, but those people didn't get rid of their ideas or their ideology. They still harbored those same beliefs. So I think that's what some people forget. And I'm thinking, if you had someone that was an IT manager, but then they were against a certain group of individuals for no real legitimate reason, or some reason that they believe is legitimate for themselves, then yeah, I see that as an issue. And then also, who's going to elect these individuals? Because I'm thinking, if you have someone that was an IT manager, or even if you wanted someone, a doctor to manage the healthcare bill, even though you can probably trust the doctor to do right because of that Hippocratic oath, it would just be uncertain as to how the doctor would actually act in regards to the policy, the actual healthcare policy. And I think that's the issue, is that you're uncertain who someone is going to be until they get in office. However, I was stating that the individuals that you should have these advisors, and the issue is that you have someone, even if you have these advisors that know more about certain policies or know more about a situation than the elected official or the democratically elected individual, these individuals are beholden to that individual or to the elected official, because at the end of the day, that president or anyone else, they decide what happens. Which is funny because even if you have a general who knows more about war, I don't know if you want the general to be in charge of the war, because what if they really want to win the war? Well, the war shouldn't be won. It should be forgotten, or you should retreat it or find a diplomatic solution rather than trying to pile up the bodies. And I remember someone actually stated for war, they were stating that the idea that was against the technocracy was the guy McNamara, where he only used quantitative data and didn't take into account other variables. And I was thinking, I don't know if that really could be considered a technocracy at that point, because even though McNamara was the Secretary of Defense, they needed maybe a computologist or a data scientist or a datician, so to speak, and also some mathematicians and some people on the ground level that actually would have got the right variables in place, would have actually discovered those correct variables, and he would have actually had some legitimate data rather than using his own calculations in his own definition of what it means to be defeated and what it means to win a war. Because at the end of the day, there weren't enough people to actually decide. There weren't enough people to decide how that war was supposed to be won or whatnot. And I think that was the main issue, is that in the technocracy, which is what I think is the problem, is that you're not sure who's going to be running things. Is it going to be someone that you elect by a democratic process, or is it someone that's going to be appointed based on their attributes? Maybe it could be potentially from an AI that does it, or maybe it might be, who knows, some other process. But I just think that at the end of the day, that we would need some type of different system in place. And I do think that if you have someone you should have people that know best, and they should be sort of refrained from this political process. Where I was reading this one article where this individual actually got fired from the CDC because of politics. It demanded someone to take the fall. And I'm just thinking that I think that that's an issue, that someone has to take the fall because of some mistake. It was during the Ebola crisis where the one person in charge got fired because of how they handled the situation, which I'm thinking they should have stayed on, because it's not politics where it's like, oh, let's just vote him out of office. Like, that was probably the best person for the job, and they got fired because they wanted to get fired just because politics demanded them to take the fall. And I'm thinking, well, that's not fair. I mean, what if I'm one of the best workers at my job, and because of one incident, not too serious. I mean, we're talking about the CDC. Of course, it's going to be serious because we're talking about people's lives here. I'm thinking one incident, and that they're automatically out, gone. They're done for. I'm thinking they should not be. The same policy shouldn't really apply to them, only because like I said, it needs to be a different system, but I'll probably go more into detail to this in the next video. Okay, people. Well, this is Mr. Shaker. And till next time, I'm out.